On the morning of my parents' 40th anniversary, I pulled up to the lakeside retreat I'd secretly purchased for them and found my mother trembling beside a rental lockbox, while a minivan full of strangers unloaded suitcases. My brother-in-law had already turned my gift into a vacation listing. There was a coded key safe clamped to the door I'd paid for. There was a hand-painted sign near the mailbox reading Vance Family Retreats, and the sentence he spoke to my mother's face, along with what I pulled from my satchel 15 minutes later, did not merely wreck a party, it fractured our entire family. But here's what nobody at that shoreline could predict. The fortress was already constructed. Welcome back to Winds of Thought, where hidden truths surface and soft resolve finally speaks. We share accounts of everyday people learning to draw boundaries with the ones they hold closest. If that resonates, leave a thought below and hit subscribe, because this one cuts deep. Some children master a bicycle first. I mastered a carpenter's level. My father, Henry Hartley, taught industrial arts at the same high school in Benton Harbor, Michigan for 33 years. Before he'd let me pedal anything, he'd hand me his old aluminum level and say, "Never trust a surface you haven't checked." That philosophy essentially became my profession. I negotiate supplier contracts for a surgical equipment firm in Kalamazoo. I'm the employee who reads Clause 9.4 while everyone else flips to the signature page. The one who spots the auto-renewal trap that bankrupts you in year 5. I analyze fine print for a living. And, honestly, a little for relaxation. Inside my family, that made me helpful the way a spare tire is helpful. Need a lease scrutinized? A warranty challenged? A late-night insurance rebuttal drafted? Ring Emma. But at the dinner table, when real choices were made where holidays fell, which grandchildren got focus, whose voice carried weight, I was the younger daughter, the agreeable one, the person who yielded because yielding was less costly than the quarrel. My sister Lydia is 4 years older and has never questioned that the best share belongs to her. I'm not sharing this for sympathy. I'm sharing it because you must grasp my role. I was the family's document desk. Entrusted with every detail, invited into 0 decisions. And people who handle documents learn a particular lesson young. When you cannot win the debate, you can erect the architecture. Remember that. It's the entire narrative. 5 years ago, my dad was diagnosed with Parkinson's. He was 63 then, 67 now. If you understand the illness, you understand it doesn't invade all at once. It seeps in, like mist beneath a doorframe. Initially, it was his left hand. He began concealing it inside his jacket at church, at the lumberyard, at my nephew's soccer game. My dad is not a hands-in-pockets man, I observed. Then, it was the staircase. My parents' home is a 1991 split level he bought moonlighting weekends, and he memorized every groan in it, and it betrayed him anyway. The tub with the high ledge, the basement stairs with the washer at the bottom, the hallway runner that had lain harmless for 3 decades and abruptly became a hazard. My mother, Ruth, started sleeping poorly, not because he'd tumbled, but because she was listening for it. She stashed a phone in the bathroom and nightlights in every socket. And she adopted that bright, fraying optimism that women of her era deploy instead of admitting fear. Dad despised it all. He's a proud man, exact, a measurer, the sort who'd brace against a door casing and pretend to inspect the paint rather than accept your elbow. Watching him negotiate with his own walls fractured something in me slowly, over many months. A home is supposed to ally with you. Theirs had switched sides. And somewhere in that 4th winter, standing in their corridor, observing him chart a path to the stove like a river fording, I ceased thinking like a child and started thinking like what I am, a contracts professional. If the house was the obstacle, I would replace the house. Here's a detail you need. On their fridge, fastened by a magnet shaped like a cherry, there's been the same snapshot for 40 years. July 1984. 2 broke newlyweds on folding chairs outside a $12 a night motel at Cedar Lake, 40 minutes east of Benton Harbor. My mother is laughing. My father has hair. They speak about that week the way others speak about Rome. Someday a cottage on the water, Dad would say, and then someday got occupied raising 2 daughters on a public educator's pay, and the photo merely stayed on the refrigerator, fading gently. In early 2025, I started searching. My criteria would have made any agent weep. Single level, 0 stairs on Cedar Lake, specifically with a bedroom that could accommodate a medical bed someday without ever speaking those words aloud. It required a year to locate, and it required everything I possessed to acquire. I want to be direct about the finances because the figure matters soon. $240,000 in savings, 12 years of maxed retirement and bypassed holidays, $190,000 my grandmother bequeathed me, which I'd never touched because it felt like her palms, and $100,000 from selling my townhouse. I relocated into a rented studio and told people I craved minimal upkeep. $530,000 all in purchase and remodeling. Every cent mine, every cent documented, not 1 cent financed or requested. I finalized in February 2027 and drove out to the vacant cottage alone and stood on the pier and wept like a fool. Then I did something deeply characteristic. I told only one person. It proved to be precisely the mistaken one. For the months that followed and truthfully, for the year of scouting beforehand, that cottage became my second occupation. I wasn't constructing a vacation home. I was constructing the one adversary my father's illness couldn't conquer. Curbless shower, no threshold, no ledge, a cedar bench, and a detachable sprayer. Non-slip flooring throughout the entire residence, rated for damp soles. Chosen after I forced the contractor to stroll on 6 samples in bare feet. Lever handles on every opening, because a rounded doorknob is a grip exam, and my father has enough examinations. Wider passages, 1 story, naturally, and support rails and maple genuine ones, elegant ones, sanded silken, because the institutional chrome variety would have made Dad sense like a patient inside his own residence. And the whole objective was the reverse. The workers began calling me the level inspector because I verified every rail with Dad's old aluminum tool. And I considered it a compliment. Out back, a softly graded pathway descending to the pier with an uninterrupted cedar handhold, so a man who measures twice can stroll to the lake by himself on his own timeline with nobody fussing. That railing required 4 attempts to perfect. I paid for the 4th attempt with a grin. And because vigilance isn't merely my temperament but my literal career, I did one additional act that spring. I installed a video doorbell on the front entrance, not because I distrusted anyone, but because a $500,000 empty dwelling 60 minutes from my apartment merited a watchful eye. I want that recorded. I wasn't gullible. I was insured, alerted, and monitored. It merely transpires that a camera only reveals who entered. It cannot reveal what they were hauling away. In April 2027, a month after closing, I sat in the conference room of an estate attorney named Regina Okonkwo and erected the fortress. We transferred the cottage's deed into an irrevocable trust, the Cedar Shores Trust, because I'm sentimental in documentation if nowhere else. An independent professional trustee, North Star Fiduciary, retains legal title. My parents are the lifetime beneficiaries. Exclusive right to reside for as long as either is alive, spelled out in an occupancy contract with phrasing I scrutinized the way I scrutinize everything. No sale, no lien, no lease, no short-term rental of any type without the trustee's prior written approval. And the trustee answers to the trust instrument, not to charm. Regina asked the customary queries about tax implications and Medicaid clawback windows, and I delivered the customary responses. Then she peered at me above her spectacles and asked the non-customary one. Anyone in the family you're specifically concerned about? I said no. I said it fast. And then I paid extra to strengthen the anti-rental provision further. I've reflected on that instant often since how I couldn't vocalize my brother-in-law's name in a lawyer's office inside a room designed for precisely that admission, but I could expend $400 an hour fortifying against him in contract terminology. That's who I was. I didn't have showdowns. I had clauses. The deed recorded in April. The fortress was completed 3 months before anyone attempted to scale it. And I need you to clutch that truth, because everything that unfolds later unfolds because the fortress arrived first. Paper cannot prevent a narrative from being spoken, but it governs how the narrative concludes. Now, let me properly introduce my brother-in-law, Derek Vance, 43, spouse of Lydia, founder and sole employee of Vance Property Solutions, LLC. Derek has, in the 12 years I've known him, operated a vitamin line, a print-on-demand venture, a real estate investing mentorship, and 2 enterprises that concluded with attorneys and were never referenced again. Derek believes fervently, the manner some men believe in Scripture, that an idle possession is a perishing possession. He'll announce it over supper. He once assessed my parents' china cabinet with his gaze while chewing my mother's meatloaf. You could observe him do it, piece by piece, like a pointer moving. He's magnetic in the style of men who require you to trust they're succeeding. And my sister cherishes him with the vehement, protective devotion you grant a wager you've staked your entire self-worth upon. 18 days before the anniversary, I required assistance. The surprise demanded set up groceries, blossoms, beds arranged, my parents enticed north for lunch by the lake unsuspectingly. I couldn't manage it all from Kalamazoo and preserve my position. So, I revealed the plan to the one person I believed I could half trust with half the facts. Lydia. I settled in her kitchen in St. Joseph, swore her to silence, and observed my sister's eyes dampen when I described what I'd constructed for Mom and Dad. And for one tender minute, we were 7 and 11 again. She embraced me. She vowed. I handed her the extra key. My video doorbell possesses a log of what that vow was worth. Lydia's sedan in the cottage driveway that same weekend, which was the arrangement, and her husband in the passenger seat, which was not. 18 days afterward, a family I'd never encountered opened my parents' front entrance with a code. The final 3 weeks before the anniversary were a dash on 2 tracks. At work, I was wrapping a quarter's worth of procurement contracts. At home, I was organizing a surprise via spreadsheet because, naturally, I was. I arranged the cake, lemon, their wedding selection. I composed the toast and revised it 7 times, and I had a key fabricated, not a duplicate. A ceremonial key. Solid brass, engraved on the bow. H&R. 40 years. It traveled inside my satchel for 2 weeks in a tiny felt box alongside the folder of trust papers I intended to walk them through delicately after the sparkling wine, in language that didn't resemble a legal filing. Simultaneously, the doorbell camera alerted me faithfully. Lydia's sedan Monday. Lydia's sedan Thursday. Exactly what I'd requested. She was preparing the house, stocking the refrigerator, fulfilling her role. Each notification made me feel fortunate to possess a sister. Once my device displayed an unfamiliar vehicle in the driveway, and I actually phoned her about it, and she chuckled. That's the florist. Emma, exhale, I exhaled. That's the segment that still stings. I wasn't neglectful. I verified. The camera performed its function flawlessly. It told me who arrived and departed. It simply couldn't inform me that my neighbor up there, Frank, 72, retired marina officer, mowing in knee-high socks, had begun hailing unfamiliar SUVs that entered on weekends. Or that the reply he repeatedly received was, "We're guests. We reserved online. Certain information doesn't travel until it's planted in your driveway." Mine materialized on the morning of July 2nd, hauling a wheeled duffel. The day's blueprint was straightforward. Lydia would collect Mom and Dad at 9:30 for brunch beside the lake. Some tale about a new calf with a panorama. I'd depart Kalamazoo at 10 with the cake, the sparkling wine, and the satchel, and arrive at the lake road by 11, by which time they'd be stationed at the scenic overlook 2 minutes from the cottage. Then the stroll to the entrance, the key, the unveiling. I'd rehearsed the instant so frequently it had cinematography, my mother's palms flying to her lips, my father noticing the pier railing. I drove north with the windows lowered, cake strapped into the passenger seat like a fourth relative, and I recall thinking the lake resembled burnished steel and that by evening my parents would be inhabitants of its shore. Then I executed the turn onto the gravel lane, and my mind performed that trick where it rejects the image. 2 SUVs I didn't recognize, parked outward-facing. A collapsible baggage cart, a baggage cart beside the porch. On the front entrance, above the handle I'd selected, because levers are gentler on trembling hands, rested a charcoal key safe, the sort vacation managers utilize, attached like a tumor. And beside the mailbox, on a small painted stake, a freshly lacquered wooden placard reading Vance Family Retreats. For a complete 4 seconds, I believed I'd pulled into the wrong property. That's the candid truth. I checked the pier railing to confirm. Then I spotted my mother. She was positioned in the center of the gravel in her anniversary attire, and she was quivering. Lydia's car was present too. Doors ajar. My mother stood with both palms pressed flat against her abdomen like she was containing something inside. And she couldn't cease trembling. Not weeping. Trembling, which is worse. Because weeping is a relief, and trembling is a blockade. My father stood adjacent to her, unnaturally erect, feet planted broad, and I recognized that posture. It's what he does when the tremor is severe, and he refuses to let it triumph publicly. He wasn't examining the house. He was examining a stationary point across the water, jaw locked, a man maintaining verticality through geometry. Exiting the front door, my front door, their front door was a buoyant clan of 4 in swim attire and cover-ups, lugging coolers and that baggage cart. The father of the group noticed us gathered in the driveway and offered the amiable, oblivious gesture of a content customer. "Stunning spot," he said to nobody specifically. 5 stars. Derek's an incredibly responsive host. He uttered Derek's name the manner you'd reference a companion. One of his youngsters sprinted a final dash down my father's cedar-railed pier path, flip-flops smacking the slope I'd had reconstructed 4 times, and I detected my mother release a tiny noise. The guests packed up and crunched away down the lane, and the 4 of us stood in the abrupt hush with the key safe and the sign. My mother's voice emerged roughly an inch high. "Emma." There were strangers inside the house. Lydia halted, compressed her lips, recommenced. "Whose dwelling is this?" And before I could answer my mother's query, the screen door swung outward, and my brother-in-law strode onto the deck with his arms extended wide, beaming like a person about to receive a trophy. There they are. Derek descended the stairs in a polo the shade of a tennis court, and I realized with a jolt that he wasn't caught. He was hosting. He believed this was his morning. "Henry, Ruth, happy anniversary. Enter, enter," we tidied after checkout. Inside, my living area had been staged. Catalog-style accent cushions, a laminated welcome binder atop the coffee table I'd chosen, a basket of single-use coffee capsules where I'd intended to place my mother's kettle. Derek ushered us inside like an agent at an open house and commenced the pitch he'd plainly rehearsed. He'd gotten the property listed 2 weeks prior. 5 bookings already secured for summer. $190,400 in revenue. Ruth $19,400. The place literally finances itself. Peak weeks leased, but you folks would enjoy it most off peak weekdays. Obviously, family receives precedence. And then, he reached into his breast pocket and produced a check. And this is the particular I will be detailing to a counselor one day. He extended to my trembling mother a check for $2,100, the initial payout with both hands like a diploma. First of many. Ruth. My mother glanced downward at the check as though he'd handed her a deceased sparrow. But whose house? She started again, and her voice fractured midway. And Derek, grinning, cordial, utterly convinced, looked my mother directly and delivered the line he'd likely practiced in the SUV. It belongs to the family now. Behind him, my sister stood near the fireplace I'd had restored. And she was radiant, glowing, proud. I placed my satchel on the coffee table atop the guest binder, and the snap of the clasps was the loudest noise in the chamber. I didn't open it yet. First I inquired, because that's what I do. In my profession, you never reveal your leverage before absorbing their narrative. I employed my work tone, the flat, cordial one that unsettles vendors. Derek. Quick logistics. Who executed the rental contracts with those guests? He blinked, recovered, grinned. I did. Well, Vance Property Solutions manages it. All right, and the payments route where? Business account, then we allocate. Ruth's holding the first allocation right now. He said allocate like a man distributing bread. Final one. Who granted you the authority to lease this property? And that's where the smile grew patient, the peculiar patience of a man who's determined your query is the actual dilemma in the room. Emma, Derek said softly as though I were slow. A family asset sitting vacant is a family problem. We resolved it. You of all individuals should admire efficient deployment of capital. Lydia advanced from the fireplace, arms folded, and launched the reversal she'd apparently been storing since I entered. And honestly, Emma, you plan to conceal an entire house from everyone, from your own family. We discovered it, and we managed it like adults rather than making it strange and covert. There it was. I'd been reclassified from benefactor to hoarder. In one sentence, in a living room I financed, while our mother stood trembling with a stranger's check in her grasp. I've expended my entire existence being talked over at family gatherings, and I sensed the old reflex surge. Swallow it, smooth it, resolve it silently afterward. Then I glanced past both of them at my father. He hadn't uttered a syllable. He was positioned at the corridor opening, and he was gliding his thumb along the maple grab rail, slowly, back and forth, like he was interpreting it. The final guest's tires faded down the gravel, and my mother asked in the bright, brittle hostess tone she employs when the vessel is sinking, whether we could all kindly sit and converse like family. So, we sat on rental-staged furniture, and Derek continued selling. Because selling is what Derek does when other men would apologize. Vacation rental jargon flooded the space occupancy percentages, shoulder months, dynamic pricing, self-managing property. My father sat with both palms flat on his thighs, pressing them steady, and said absolutely nothing. And his silence carried a specific density that everyone kept speaking louder to avoid. And then Derek, deep in his pitch, uttered the figure he shouldn't have possessed. Look, on a $440,000 purchase, even pre-renovation, you're viewing a 78% gross yield, which for this lake, $440,000 the acquisition price before remodeling. A number that existed in precisely one location at that lake, the closing folder in the locked file drawer of the cottage study, the drawer whose key resided on the ring I'd handed my sister. Nobody knew that number. Not my parents, not the neighbors, not the florist. I looked at Lydia, and Lydia looked at the window with abrupt, profound fascination for the lake panorama. And the final gentle fragment inside me quietly rose and exited the room. She hadn't merely referenced the cottage to her spouse. She'd rifled through my documents and photographed my settlement papers or permitted him to. Either way, my sister had plundered the gift I'd sworn her to safeguard. Derek, I said. Still level. Where did you obtain 440? The pause prior to his response lasted a half second too long. So, I reached over and unfastened the satchel. Here's what was supposed to occur with that satchel. Sparkling wine first, then the toast, then me kneeling beside my mother's chair, unsealing it gradually, presenting the brass key in its felt box and guiding my parents gently, joyfully, through papers that declared the lake was theirs for the remainder of their lives. Instead, I unsealed it atop Derek's laminated guest binder in a room that smelled of strangers' sunscreen. I arranged the documents one by one, facing them as I would for an adversarial vendor. The recorded deed, title retained by the Cedar Shores Trust since April. The trust instrument, Trustee North Star Fiduciary Services, an institution, not a relation, not swayable at a cookout. The occupancy agreement in plain bold lettering, Henry and Ruth Hartley, exclusive lifetime right of occupancy, and the clause I'd paid extra to hone, which I recited aloud once, slowly, no lease, license, or short-term rental of any nature without the trustee's prior written consent. Then I placed the felt box on the table and opened it, and the brass key rested there capturing the lake light, H&R, 40 years 3 months premature and half a day tardy. It was never sitting vacant, Derek, I stated. It was waiting to be gifted. This is Mom and Dad's residence. It has been since April. Legally, it isn't mine. It isn't yours. It isn't the family's. And every contract you executed on it is null. My mother released a sound midway between a sob and a chuckle and placed both hands over her mouth, exactly like my rehearsals, in the most incorrect possible version of the scene. My father shut his eyes, and my sister examined the deed and the trustee's name and the key, and her smile extinguished like a pilot light. For roughly 5 seconds, nobody breathed. Derek recovered first. Derek always recovers first. He lifted the deed and perused it with his lips moving the way my dad reads legal language, except on Derek it resembled a person inspecting a lottery slip. Then he placed it down and did the act that revealed precisely how deep the cavity was. He kept pitching. Okay, this is actually fine. Better, even, the trust can simply approve it. We maintain the listing live. North Star signs off. I administer the property professionally. We divide the revenue. Say the folks accept 30%. The folks, I said, possess the use of the entire house. You're proposing a commission on their own anniversary present. I have reservations, Emma. His voice tightened one notch. Confirmed reservations. Deposits expended. There are sanitation contracts. There's a spa technician arriving Friday. You nullify a summer like this, the penalties, the ratings. I forfeit my host's score over this. I forfeit. There it was, the genuine topic of every statement he'd uttered all morning. And what? I asked. Were you going to forfeit informing strangers they could slumber in a residence that was never yours? Lydia surged off the fireplace then, flushed, livid the manner people become livid when the narrative reverses on them. You're executing it again. The documentation maneuver, making everyone feel ignorant and insignificant. Derek contributed effort. I contributed effort. You'd have recognized that if you hadn't concealed everything from us like we're criminals. The word hovered there, performing its own audit of the room. My mother whispered, Lydia. And my sister spoke the hushed true statement at last. He required this one, Emma. You have zero conception what it's been like. I handed him the key the same day you handed it to me. Not Derek went behind my back. I handed him the key. Loss number 2. Notarized. My mother tugged me into the kitchen. My kitchen, her kitchen, the one with the seamless counter from basin to range, so a man with tremors can glide a pot rather than hoisting it. And she grasped my wrists with both hands. And here is the portion of this account that still throbs in a manner Derek never achieved. Emma, baby, I comprehend, she said. I comprehend you're correct. I can interpret a room. I observed the deed. I realize what he did is she wouldn't even utter a term for it. She merely flinched. But it is my 40th anniversary. Your father's relatives are journeying from Indiana. 40 individuals tonight in my yard. I have awaited my entire life to be honored one occasion. One occasion, without someone's catastrophe in the center of it. Her gaze was damp and fierce and beseeching simultaneously. So please don't generate a spectacle, Emma. Resolve it after the gathering. Paper keeps. Celebrations don't. Generate no spectacle, Emma. I want you to grasp what that phrase signifies in my family. It's not a petition, it's an operating system. It's 40 years of my mother purchasing peace on installment and me co-signing every payment, every swallowed retort, every quietly mended issue. Every welcome kid of my existence endorsed in stillness. She wasn't mistaken to desire her party. That's what rendered it terrible. The individual I constructed the fortress for was pleading with me to keep the gate unlatched one additional night. And every instinct I possessed declared, do it. Preserve the calm. Manage it Monday through attorney, like a professional. Through the kitchen entry, I could glimpse my father in the living area, still upright, one thumb still tracing gradual on that maple rail. I kissed my mother's brow. No spectacle, Mom. I guarantee your party. I maintained that guarantee. Too technically, because here's what I did not guarantee. I strode onto the deck alone, past the key safe fastened over my lever handle, and I executed 2 telephone calls in the July sunshine, while inside Derek reinflated and commenced elucidating to my parents how we could still rescue the summer months. Call 1. Regina Okonkwo. I summarized the morning in 5 sentences. Attorney's invoice by the minute, and I value currency now more than ever. She was silent precisely as long as it requires to jot one line, then stated, unauthorized listing, no color of title. Trustee's duty is instantaneous. We dispatch the cease and desist today, and I connect North Star within the hour. Emma, do not negotiate with him. You're not a party. The trust is. Call 2. With Regina conferenced, North Star fiduciary who, as trustee, submitted the report to the rental platform that afternoon, lawful owner of record, listing unauthorized, all reservations void. I stood on that deck, and I could detect Derek's voice through the screen, cozy and sensible, informing my trembling mother about shoulder month returns, and I experienced the sensation I imagine surgeons experience, not fury, precision. The arrival scheduled for 4:00 p.m. That evening never transpired. A platform trust and safety division, it transpires, moves more swiftly for deeds than for sentiments. Every summer reservation, all 5, all 19,400 terminated and reimbursed entirely from the host's disbursement account. An account whose balance I would subsequently discover Derek had already expended forward against. I returned to my vehicle to trail everyone south to the gathering, and I gazed at the key safe one additional time before departing. It could remain one more night. Fortresses withstand even when a latch is fastened upon them. At 3:45 that afternoon, in my parents' backyard, beneath 40 feet of string lights he'd assisted in draping, Derek's device began to vibrate, and it did not cease. We were all at my parents' residence in Benton Harbor, by then 5 of us navigating a backyard in the particular hush of a family that has consented to detonate later. Folding tables, tablecloths, my mother orchestrating chair arrangement with the concentration of a field commander, because logistics were the sole element she could govern. Derek, to his credit or his pathology, had appeared and suspended string lights, 40 feet of them. Whistling a man who sincerely trusted the morning had been a discussion that finished with "we'll loop back." At 3:45, his device buzzed inside his shirt pocket. Then again. Then in a cadence like weather advancing. I observed him from across the lawn as he perused the alert that the listing was removed. The communication from Trust and Safety, 5 cancellation notifications, one after another, each with its guest refund verification. And then the one that caused his hand to grasp the fence post the disbursement reversal. 19,400 reclaimed entirely from the Vance Property Solutions account, which held evidently nowhere near that sum, because deposits had already morphed into sanitation contracts, and a spa technician and, I'd speculate, a hand-painted wooden sign. Account balance negative. Account status suspended pending review. Derek lifted his gaze, and across 40 feet of grass and unlit string lights, he located me. I was arranging folding chairs. I arranged another one. There exist individuals who will label what I experienced in that instant as vengeance. And I've reconciled with them being incorrect. It wasn't vengeance. It was a contract enforcing itself precisely as drafted on the inaugural person in my existence, who ever presumed my paperwork was ornamental. Let me pause here and ask you something. If you've ever been branded selfish for safeguarding someone you cherish, a parent, a child, a present you constructed with your own hands, share it with me in the commentary. I peruse every single one. And remain with me, because the most challenging segment of this narrative isn't the documentation, it's what I was compelled to do at the party. Subscribe so you don't overlook it. Derek discovered me beside the garage 12 minutes afterward, in the crevice between the recycling containers and the rose lattice, which is where my family has consistently conducted its genuine assemblies. Up close, the tennis court polo exhibited perspiration at the collar and the salesman had vanished. What lingered was quieter and simpler to pity. "You must contact them," he uttered. "The platform. Inform them it was a family miscommunication. Inform them the proprietor authorized it retroactively. North Star will execute whatever you instruct. Don't assert they won't." Emma, I'm negative 19,000 as of 1 hour ago. I possess contracts outstanding. I possess a person arriving Friday for a spa. I cannot, he halted, pressed the heel of his palm to his brow. When he vocalized again, his voice had discarded its pitch deck tone entirely. It was intended to belong to the family. That's all this ever was, an asset like that, merely resting there. Do you comprehend what that inflicts on a man like me? To occupy your parents' table for a decade, being the one whose ventures never succeeded, and then discover that quiet Emma secretly possesses a $500,000 lakefront and didn't even contemplate he caught himself. Didn't even contemplate including me. The statement he swallowed was the truest utterance he articulated all day. On the journey down, I'd observed the passenger seat of his truck through the glass, a fan of correspondence, 2 of them bordered in collection agency scarlet. I hadn't intended to utilize that. And I didn't. And I won't pretend that was compassion. I merely ultimately comprehended what I was observing. Derek wasn't a predator. He was a drowning man who'd misidentified my parents' anniversary as a shoreline. "The trust isn't furious, Derek," I stated. "It's simply not swayable. You've never encountered anything like that, have you?" Lydia's rendition materialized at 5, an hour prior to the guests. She entered through the rear gate bearing a casserole she'd been assigned in a prior happier chronology, placed it down with sufficient force to fracture the lid, and delivered her stance to the entire yard. I was executing what I perpetually executed, concealing behind papers, degrading individuals who actually accomplish things, converting a family blessing into a courtroom. You couldn't merely be magnanimous, Emma. You needed to be correct. She proclaimed she wasn't certain she could remain tonight, and observed me perform landlord over Mom and Dad's anniversary. And my mother, who had been creasing napkins into fans, paled. "Lydia, please." And then my mother pivoted toward me. Toward me. "Emma, sweetheart, can't you ease it merely for tonight? Inform Derek you'll devise something this week. It needn't be accurate. Just Ruth." My father's voice from the deck stairs, slicing cleanly through the yard. He hadn't vocalized since the driveway that morning. Everyone halted. He sat there with his forearms on his knees, palms tranquil for once. And he examined my mother for a lengthy instant containing 40 years, and he declared, "Let the girl be. She's the sole one here who performed the arithmetic." Then he rose, grasping the railing, his own dwelling's railing, the incorrect height, the one I hadn't managed to rectify yet, and proceeded inside. It should have felt like deliverance. It partially did. But Lydia remained, unfolding her chair like a proclamation of war, and my mother dabbed her eyes and grinned at the fence line, and I grasped the actual price sheet of the evening. I could preserve the cottage secure, or preserve this yard intact, and there existed no clause anywhere in any of my exquisite papers that could purchase both. I located my father in the garage prior to the guest's arrival, seated on his aged shop stool at the work table, fastening the hinge pins on my mother's recipe tin because his hands behave better when they're occupied. I sat on the sawhorse like I'm 7. For a span, he articulated nothing which, from Henry Hartley, is not an absence of dialogue, it's the venue for it. Then, without glancing upward, "You executed the trust in April," you declared. "Yes, sir," prior to him ever contacting it. "Yes," he nodded gradually, placed the minuscule screwdriver aside, and posed the inquiry that stripped the skin from me. "Did you construct that fortress for your mother and me, Emma? Or did you construct it so you'd never need to stand inside a room and inform your sister no?" The garage grew profoundly silent. Outside, I could detect the caterer's van and my mother's hostess giggle 1 octave too elevated. Because here's what my dad had perceived that I hadn't. Every document inside that satchel was accurate. And every document was also a method to wage the dispute without ever elevating my voice to permit a trustee inside an office in Kalamazoo to pronounce the refusal. I had never once vocalized aloud to Lydia at any table in 32 years. Paper as shield. Paper as ventriloquism. Both, I ultimately articulated, because he'd raised me not to deceive in his garage. It can be both. He regarded me then, and his gaze was compassionate, and his jaw was set, and he stated, "Tonight, it cannot." And he retrieved the recipe tin once more, and that constituted the entire sermon. My father has never in his existence employed 10 words where 4 would bear the burden. The party assembled itself the manner family parties do on tracks indifferent to the cavity in its center. 40 guests, Indiana cousins, parish companions, 2 retired shop educators who used to commute with Dad, neighbors who'd observed Lydia and me mature in coordinated jackets. String lights illuminated, lemon cake displayed on a fabric sheet stretched beside the fence. A slideshow of 40 years the motel photograph, the hospital hair, the minivan era looping while my mother narrated to anyone within reach. Radiant, because whatever else held true, she was honored tonight, and I'd have surrendered any cost for that fragment. I want that documented before I disclose the remainder. Lydia operated the yard like a co-MC, warm as August, not one glance squandered on me. My family can manage a cold conflict and a buffet queue on the identical evening. It's genuinely a talent. And Derek had undergone one of his revivals. Shirt replaced, hair damp combed, device face down inside his pocket like a resolved matter. He was circulating through the assembly, clasping hands, chuckling at the appropriate decibel, refilling wine. And something regarding the performance possessed a contour. I identified the particular industriousness of a man constructing toward a microphone. I witnessed him lean toward my Uncle Pete, who was emceeing on the strength of possessing a portable speaker, and I witnessed him tap the speaker and mime a miniature toast gesture, merely a few remarks after supper. And Uncle Pete, who has never suspected anyone of anything, granted him a thumbs up. Every contractual instinct I possess began tolling at once. Whatever Derek had forfeited in the driveway and the disbursement account, there remained one possession of mine he could still attach his name to tonight. The narrative. Dinner concluded, the cicadas emerged like an orchestra warming, and my mother's countenance in the string lights appeared the manner I'd envisioned it, peering at the cottage entrance. I captured the expression correctly, merely at the incorrect location. Uncle Pete pinged the portable speaker into feedback, jested about his audio crew, and articulated the words, "Before dessert, Derek wishes to share a few." My mother reached for her glass. My father, adjacent to her, grew extraordinarily motionless in a manner I recognized from the driveway, the stillness of a man stealing on intention. And I sat with my palms folded in my lap at the distant table, and the aged operating system activated precisely on timetable, proffering its recognizable menu. He's merely going to ease matters over. Permit him his miniature toast. The documents are submitted. The trust is protected. The platform case is sealed. The conflict is already triumphed. So what does the tale cost you? Release it. Preserve the peace. Mend any loose threads Monday, discreetly, through attorney. It's a compelling proposition. It has functioned on me my entire existence. Lydia tilted her seat toward her spouse and affixed the identical proud grin from the cottage fireplace, the one from prior to the satchel, entirely reloaded as though the morning had never transpired. Derek rose, fastened his blazer like a person accepting an accolade he had actually transformed into a blazer for this, elevated his glass toward my parents, and tapped the microphone. 40 years, he commenced, cozy as molasses, and tonight, Lydia and I get to contribute something to it. And every cranium in that yard rotated toward him, including my trembling mother's, and I sensed my own glass grow weighty as a judgment in my grasp. I'll concede Derek this. It was a stunning toast. Sleek, toasty, humorous in the correct intervals, and engineered like an adept contract, every clause contestable. Henry, Ruth, 40 years of demonstrating to the remainder of us how it's accomplished. And this household wished to return something that equaled the milestone. Glass elevated, pause retained, showman's beat. As of this summer, there exists a lakeside sanctuary up at Cedar Lake for you. A family endeavor. Numerous hands contributed, and I especially wish to acknowledge my remarkable wife, Lydia, who devoted herself to preparing that dwelling. The yard erupted into applause. Authentic applause. 40 individuals, parish companions, Indiana cousins, someone whistling. You perceive the architecture, correct? Not one sentence was wholly false. A sanctuary exists. Hands did contribute. Lydia did transport groceries there on journeys she employed to photograph my settlement documents. But who's scrutinizing a toast? It was masterful. He'd lost the deed, the listing, and $19,000. So he was concluding on the sole possession remaining unguarded: authorship. By tomorrow, the iteration of the account residing in 40 households would be Derek and Lydia constructed the folks a lake house. And the trust, the maple rails, the 20 months, the $530,000 would belong to numerous hands. My mother was applauding, perplexed, glancing between Derek and me with her hostess smile affixed like festive trim. My father was not applauding. He was observing me, not signaling, not imploring, merely observing, steady the way he observes a board to verify whether it's genuine. And I sat there in the applause with my glass perspiring in my palm and my entire life's operating system shrieking its sole directive: generate no spectacle, Emma. And I contemplated a carpenter's level and a thumb tracing along a maple railing, interpreting it. I arose. I desire to describe what I witnessed in the second and a half that I stood there, with my chair scraping rearward and 40 countenances rotating toward me. Because it matters that I witnessed it, prior to speaking, not subsequently. I witnessed Derek with his glass still elevated, moisture at his temple in the string-light radiance. And for once, I didn't perceive the polo or the pitch. I perceived a man with crimson-bordered envelopes fanned on his truck seat. A man 12 years into being the son-in-law whose ventures required finger quotes, who occupied Hartley tables observing a shop instructor garner more esteem for a deck he constructed in 2002 than Derek had garnered for anything ever. A man conditioned by something, by everything, to trust that a family is a portfolio and affection is allocations. And that, if he could merely once position himself at a microphone and be the supplier, the deficit beneath him would cease to matter. He hadn't stolen my parents' dwelling the way a burglar steals. He'd seized it the way a drowning man seizes a dock piling. And he'd have drowned my parents' reserves right alongside him, grinning, labeling it swimming instruction. I comprehended him completely in that second and a half. I even ached for him fractionally, which startled me. And none of it, this is the segment I require you to perceive, none of it altered a solitary element regarding what required articulation. Because grasping why the water ascends is not a justification to surrender your father's dwelling to it. Uncle Pete, bless him, witnessed me standing and presumed the agenda possessed a second orator. He extended the microphone. And now, the other sister. The other sister 20 years hence inscribe on my headstone. I accepted the mic. I didn't elevate my voice. That was the revelation of the entire evening. Actually, that the hushed tone I'd utilized my whole life for surrender functions equally effectively for the alternative. I wish to supplement Derek's toast, I stated. And Derek's grin performed something intricate. Because he's accurate that a dwelling exists, and he's accurate that numerous hands contributed. I engaged the majority of them. Faint laughter from the cousins, uncertain. I maintained my gaze on my parents. Mom, Dad. 20 months ago, I commenced searching for a property on Cedar Lake due to a photograph on your refrigerator that's been vowing you the water since 1984. I located it in February. I expended everything I've ever conserved on it. And I expended 5 months reconstructing it. The shower possesses no step, Dad. The floors don't slide. Every entrance is a lever. There's a maple railing from the deck all the route down to the pier. And I verified every inch of it with your level. My mother's palm had traveled to her lips. Somewhere behind me, a cousin murmured, "Oh my goodness," softly, like in chapel. It was intended to be a surprise this morning, with sparkling wine. Instead, you discovered strangers' vehicles in the driveway because it expended the past 2 weeks earning $19,000 for someone else as a rental I never sanctioned. Not a murmur in that yard now. Cicadas conceded. So permit me to conclude the toast correctly. The dwelling is yours, lawfully, permanently, inside a trust nobody can lease, borrow against, or administer on your behalf. It is not a household endeavor. It is not an income current. It is not obtainable. I elevated my glass an inch. Joyous 40th. The key is genuine this occasion. And Derek, who could have endured the evening by remaining seated, selected the alternative entrance. All right, pause. This is what I intend, he proclaimed loudly. And the yard rotated back toward him like climate. He advanced up the corridor between the tables, gesturing with his glass, projecting for the inexpensive seats. This is the documentation maneuver. This is what she executes. We possessed a functional arrangement that profited everyone. The dwelling finances itself. Henry and Ruth gain. And she sank it out of malice this afternoon. Inquire of her. Inquire what she did to my enterprise today. His voice was ascending registers, and I detected it the manner you detect a proposal collapse inside a conference chamber. The louder he grew, the smaller he resonated, and every guest inside that yard could perceive the arithmetic. Her savings? His listing? I articulated quietly into the mic. I reported an unauthorized rental to the platform. The platform concurred. That's the entire account, Derek. Lydia was on her feet now, 2 spots of pigment elevated on her cheekbones, and she discharged the family's eldest artillery across the tables at me. Hissed through teeth. Generate no spectacle, Emma. 40 years of our operating system deployed as weaponry before the parish companions, and I experienced the statement land, and then for the inaugural instant in my existence, observed it miss. This isn't a spectacle, Lydia, I articulated. It's a boundary. You've simply never witnessed one at this table previously. Derek slammed his glass upon the closest table, wine vaulting the rim, an Indiana aunt rescuing her handbag, and performed the final card in the deck, the one he'd uttered to my trembling mother's countenance that morning, except now it emerged with the costume removed. That dwelling belongs to the family. It belongs to Mom and Dad. I didn't even elevate the mic for it. That was perpetually the entire point. Stillness. The elongated variety. Then, Lydia collected her satchel, grasped her spouse's elbow, and proclaimed to the string lights that they would not linger to be mortified. And 40 guests observed my sister's stride out of our parents' 40th anniversary celebration through the side gate, beyond the fabric sheet where the slideshow was, at that precise instant, displaying the two of us at 6 and 9 in coordinated jackets, clasping hands on a pier. The gate smacked shut, and the yard occupied the wreckage of it. My mother frozen midway from her chair, rent precisely in two. One daughter exited through the gate, one positioned with a microphone. Her honored evening collapsed in the turf. And then, my father rose. He executed it gradually, the manner he executes everything now, positioning his cane, declining 3 proffered elbows on the ascent. And he traversed to me and extended his palm for the mic, and his palm was trembling, and he did not conceal it. He gripped the microphone in plain view of everyone, trembling, and permitted it to tremble. 40 years ago, he articulated, "I vowed Ruth a place on the water one day." Instructor salary, 2 daughters one day kept shifting. He regarded my mother the entire duration. My youngest retained the vow for me. Constructed it so I can stroll to the pier by myself. Verified it with my own level, I'm informed. A breath. Ragged. I lack an address. Ruth. The water is ours. Elevate them. 40 glasses ascended in the string lights. My mother laughed and sobbed simultaneously in a manner I will be capable of perceiving for the remainder of my existence. And that trembling toast, concealed from no one, was the response to the inquiry he'd posed me inside the garage. You cannot document your path out of rising. Not him. Not me. Not any longer. The tallying. Since I realize you desire it, my parents relocated into the cottage the 3rd week of October, when the maples on that shoreline turn the hue of ignited matches. The key safe detached from the entrance in roughly 90 seconds with Dad's battery-powered drill. He insisted on executing it himself, seated in a lawn chair, progressing gradually. And the Vance Family Retreats placard expended November as firewood, which my mother labeled extravagant, then observed combust with observable gratification. We reconducted the key ceremony correctly. Sparkling wine, lemon cake, the felt box, the brass key 4 months belated and precisely correct. Except 4 chairs were arranged and merely 3 occupied. Lydia didn't attend. Lydia hasn't attended. She forwards the Children's Academy photographs to my mother and communicates with me in a dialect of holiday card protocol, and I've ceased anticipating the melt. Certain doors you keep unbolted without occupying them. Derek resolved with the platform on an installment plan, divested the more recent SUV, and by spring had reinvented on social platforms as a household wealth attitude counselor, which I am selecting to find amusing, because the option is not finding it amusing. No one litigated anyone. Family doesn't litigate family. He was accurate regarding that solitary statement. The trust merely never blinked, because trusts don't. And here's my preferred ledger entry, the one I didn't anticipate. My parents' previous split level didn't vend. On Regina's counsel, the trust absorbed it, and North Star leases it extended term, screen tenants, market valuation, every dollar directed to my parents' care reserve, every endorsement routed through a fiduciary, a rental in sunshine, with approval the monotonous legal method. My mother declares Derek would value the irony. My mother is mistaken. Men like Derek never value the irony. The irony is squandered on them. So I retain it for myself, the manner I once retained everything. Final November, I stationed myself at the kitchen pane of that cottage and observed my father stroll the complete length of the pier path, a lone cane in one hand, the other gliding the maple rail I verified with his level. And I didn't stir to assist. Because a fortress encircling the individuals you cherish isn't an absence of affection. It's the ultimate contour affection assumes when someone commences gauging your household by what it can generate. A charcoal key safe on an entrance I financed. A brass key engraved with 40 years. My father's unwavering stroll along that pier, that's my narrative. Now share yours. What boundary did you sketch that someone branded selfish? Deposit it in the comments. I peruse every solitary one. And if this account lingered with you, subscribe to Winds of Thought. because next week's narrative reaches even nearer to the dwelling. Care for yourself. That's family, as well.